It's time to peel back with Maddie Levine, presented by Fight Bananas.
It's fight week, baby. I am so excited. It is Maddie Levine here. Thank you so much for joining, as always, each and every week on the Peel Back. Fight Bananas is the place to be for all things MMA and fighting related. So a huge shout out to all of our supporters and for always listening in. Now, this is a big week for New England because we are back in Plymouth for Cage Titans 60. And if you're familiar with the New England scene, if you're familiar with the East Coast in general and MMA, chances are you have heard of Cage Titans. Cage Titans has been blowing up regionally and getting a lot of buzz online. They always bring an amazing show to Plymouth. And so who better than to have the Cage Titans president on the podcast to talk about the card coming up on Saturday. Mike Polvere, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. I feel like I should have a banana for this one.
Or at least like a banana hat or something, right?
Something. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining on the show. We have kind of a milestone on our hands with Cage Titans 60. So that's super exciting. But before we get to this weekend, I kind of want the fans to get to know the man behind the brand. Now, if your tapology is correct, because yes, you have one.
Yes.
You are 2-0 as a professional MMA fighter. So tell me why you stopped at 2-0. What's the deal?
So I guess I'd say this is that, like, I was a guy that was always intrigued by fighting, to be quite honest, but I didn't wrestle or anything. I played hockey and things like that when I was younger. And I was not like a treadmill kind of like lift weights kind of guy. So later in life, after hockey stopped and all the sports in high school, I fell in love watching MMA years ago. I tell this story a lot. Like, I don't know how old you are, but like for the older people, we used to have to steal cable off a black box. And it was basically like, I would go to my friend's house and he had a black box in his basement and we would watch UFC stuff. So I was always a fan. And when the opportunity came to train, I was a little later in life, 27, I believe, 26, 27. And I was about to have my second kid. I have 5 now. So that tells you how long ago. But
I did not know that. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah. So the second kid who I'm talking about is actually 15. His birthday was last 3 days ago. But anywho, I was like, I need to do something to get in shape so I can live a long life for my kids. And I started training MMA and I fell in love with it a little bit more. I bought a heavy bag elliptical and I just started training in the basement at my house. And then I lost some weight and I found South Shore Sport Fighting, actually. Started training there. And I was like, only going to train until my kid was born. And then it turned into, all right, I'll train to one fight. And then I was 3-0 at one fight as an amateur, turned into 2, turned into 3. And then I was 3-0 as an amateur. And in Massachusetts, the Athletic Commission came into existence in like 2008, 2009. And they weren't sanctioning amateurs. So it was like, all right, cool. I guess I'm going pro. And I went pro. I had a fight. And then at that point in time, truth be told, I was like, listen, I don't know how far I can go in this at now 30 years old, which I thought I was ancient at 30. Now,
right.
No. I didn't know how far I could go. And to be quite honest, like, a lot of promoters were just, my language is bad, but they were just shitbags. They ripped off fighters. They didn't treat them right. They'd be like, hey, go hustle tickets, but they wouldn't give them promotional materials to help sell their fights. This really was not a great atmosphere for fighters back then. And my background's in marketing and sales. And I just said, you know what? I don't know how far I can go in the sport as a fighter, but I feel like I have something to give back to the sport elsewhere. And I guess the straw that broke the camel's back is I was fighting for a promotion and they were looking for a venue. And at the time I was like a marketing director and sales director at Lombardo's in Randolph. And I convinced the owners to do an MMA show. And just as I just said, promoters are shitbags. They bounce checks to the venue after I convinced the venue to host them. The day after the event, fighters were at the front door being like, where's our money? That guy's check bounced. And we were like, we're just the venue. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I said, that's it. the owners of Lombardo's, my bosses, said, Mike, you're a fighter. You're our marketing and sales guy. Why do we need somebody else? Can we do it without him? And Cage Titans was born 2010, and I really haven't looked back since.
So this was back in 2010. So back in 2010, you decided to start this brand. Did something happen in your life, or was it kind of a brainstorming session to come up with Cage Titans? Where did that come from?
So oddly enough, I will give credit. There was one guy that worked for that company who bounced checks and is bad, and that's kind of who he was like. Listen, Mike, you have the venue. Why? And he kind of hit me. And one day, him and I were brainstorming on names, and he came up with Cage Titans Fighting Organization, but he wanted to spell Cage with a K, so it was KTFO. He thought that was hilarious and thought it was a great idea. And I said, listen, as a marketing guy, your brand needs to tell people what you do, who you are, and some funky spelling. People are going to be looking for Cage Titans as with a C.
Yeah.
It wouldn't lend itself. So we came back and I said, it has to be Cage with a C. I get the whole KTFO. You think it's funny, but that's not going to work. And then we did the FC as kind of like a little bit of a tribute to Pride with Pride FC. So that's kind of how the name came to fruition. And here we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that I have loved for a while now with Cage Titans is you and your team always want to evolve. You're evolving with the times. You're not afraid to change things and add things, take away things. Do you think that's one of the biggest reasons you guys stand out so much in the regional scene? Or what do you attribute your success to?
I mean, first and foremost, being a fighter myself, and as I mentioned, what made me get started is just like, I know what I would want as a fighter out of a promotion. And that was when I started Cage Titans, is like, this is what I would have wanted when I was fighting. So it just, first and foremost, everything I do from a standpoint is what would I wanted when I fought. I think that was what started the trend of Cage Titans on the rise in the early days. And the fact that I was a peer, like I'd walk into a gym and it's like, back then there was scumbag, like Don King. People hear horror stories of Don King. Those were the days back then. They would just take advantage of fighters. I was one of them. And it was the camaraderie that I would go on the mats. Guys that fought in the early days fought on the same cards as me. So I think I had a instant credibility at the beginning. But then as we've grown through the years, it just really comes down to that. Like, what would I want as a fighter? What would I want to do if, what would be important to me? Things of that nature. I think it's so important. And I think that's what separates us. And we're not afraid to try things and roll things out. And I think that also helps us, because I say this to a lot of fighters, like your martial arts journey, you're not the same fighter you were when you fought your first Cage Titans fight. You're constantly trying to improve your next outing. I do that same thing. Like, who I was at Cage Titans 1 is not who we're at Cage Titans 60. And no matter how much success we do have, my motto is there's still something you can improve on. I'm long-winded, so I'll stop there. There's a whole other avenue I can go down to.
I dig it. I mean, well, I will say this. I think where a lot of promotions lack, regionally and nationally, is their social media presence. They don't put an emphasis on that. And I think you guys absolutely crush the social scene. Nick Haler is so talented. I know he helps with the social and the marketing, and but you have so many people behind the scenes working. Did you ever expect that you would see the type of numbers that you see online? Like, I'm looking at some of these videos and they're in the millions. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's funny. So, Nick came on probably about 3 years ago. But up to that, I did everything. I create all our graphics. I was managing all the pages, because that was, my forte in marketing. And that I go back to that when you said when I started, it was like, back then MySpace was around.
Yeah. Oh God, you're dating yourself, bro.
Yeah, I'm old. I'm 42. I have no problem. I got a 19-year-old kid, so I'm old. But I feel young but either way, when you look back then, like I said, promoters would be like, here's some tickets, go hustle and sell us tickets. And it's like, okay. And fighters would just constantly post, buy tickets, I'm fighting. And then tomorrow, buy tickets, I'm fighting. It's like, hey, let's give them materials. Let's give them posters Let's give them, videos. Let's give them podcasts, interviews. So, the social media thing has been around for a while. We were doing Snapchat geo filters, 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
We always just try to stay ahead of the curve because social media is huge now. And I pride ourselves on that, and back in the day, people would be like, oh, we got these many viewers on this or that. And it's like, well, our numbers on social media are just staggering. And we just really put a focus. And then when Nick came in, Nick really helped take some of the pressure off me from having to do it all. And then he's just elevated our game to another level because he does some great video work and he's just great at capturing moments.
Yeah.
And we say that to every fighter when they fight for us. We set the stage. The moment is yours. Do what you want with it. You want to come out with a purge max like Lionel? You want to come out with a cowboy hat and sing that song, that the party song? The people like, how come you don't post about me more? It's like, we post about those who post about themselves and give us things. Andrew Valdine is a guy that comes up a lot and people are like, man, you post about him a lot. I'm like, he posts a lot about himself and tags us and gives us that content. He gives us that moment. Like a couple of shows ago, he pulls out the fake sword and slashes his guy and that goes and blows up. And then somebody did it in the UFC last week and there's comparisons online being like, who did it better? They take the moment and run with it.
Right. And what an incredible lesson that you are teaching these young fighters too, is like, there's promotions like the UFC literally say in the contract sometimes, we need you to be sellable. We need you to be somebody that we can promote. So to learn that at such an early stage in a lot of their careers, like that is so valuable. And to see them actually do something with it is really big. Do you think you're ever going to see a point where you outgrow Plymouth Memorial Hall?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. I say this to everybody who ever asked me that question. Why would I want to go anywhere else besides Plymouth Memorial Hall? If you fought there or if you've been there, the atmosphere is just electric. For a regional show, there's nowhere better. And if you've heard me talk, I've said this a million times. People say, do you need a bigger boat or do you need more boats? And I go with the philosophy, you know what? I'd rather do a show every other month at Memorial Hall with that atmosphere than go to a bigger boat and do maybe 3 shows a year, but they're bigger. I think we have a great thing there. I think we know the venue well. I think the fans really love it. Fun fact, I fought for Reality Fighting at Memorial Hall on their last ever show at Memorial Hall. And they couldn't sell tickets. And I remember I was like, damn, no one wants to go to Plymouth because you think it's the Cape, it's so far away.
Right.
Then I fought for a company called AFO in their last show, first and only show at Memorial Hall. And I think CFX did a show at Memorial Hall. So we started our Cage Titans career at Lombardo's because I was the manager there and working there. But then when I was looking for a venue, I remember back to Memorial Hall and I was like, man, this venue is second to none. I would love to do a show there, but I just keep seeing shows fail because they couldn't fill it. And I just thought it was like no one wanted to go down there. What I'm proud to say here 13 years later is like we fill the house every time. We've made it a destination. We've become synonymous with Plymouth. You're from Rhode Island. Like when people think Pawtucket, they think the Pawtucket Red Sox. Well, they're not there anymore. But if you ever said Pawtucket, it's like, where the Red Sox are? The Pawtucket Red Sox.
Yeah.
If you think Plymouth now, it's a destination and people will go there for Cage Titans. So I'm happy what we've done. But the long and the short of it is, I'm more boats. I'd rather do more shows than try to find a bigger venue. That's just honestly where I'm at.
I get a kick out of the line every single time. There's always a line. I'm like, your seats are in there, guys. Like, you don't need to line up. Like, it's so crazy. But in your opinion, before we get to the card real quick, who do you think is going to get that next call to the UFC? Out of some Cage Titans fighters, honestly. I mean, you might have to be Switzerland on this. I get that. But in your honest opinion, I mean, who do you think is the next person?
I'm going to be Switzerland on that one. It's hard because I know. Listen, this is just a Cage Titans motto for me is that even pick it. I'm down to the point where I won't like a status on anybody's social media unless it tags Cage Titans because have everybody feel important. And to be quite honest, fighters are very much divas. And like back in the early days, it's like, well, you liked his status and you didn't like my status. And you said you thought this guy could go to the UFC.
Yeah,
You don't think
it's a
I
real
can?
thing.
It's a real thing. And it's just always been my motto that like even like press conferences and things of that nature. If both fighters from both sides of the card can't be there, we don't do it. It's just something. So I'm hard pressed to get an answer out of me on that one. But we have a bunch of up and coming prospects.
Yeah, totally.
You know the names and I mean we got guys who are trying to fight to get back there. There's just so much talent, and I want to circle on this real quick. Is like you mentioned who could be next to the UFC. As important as it is to get that guy to achieve his goal to get to the UFC, and that's like the wow, like how many guys have you got to the UFC, and a lot of things the casual fans want to hear about. Just as important as that guy's goal to get to the UFC is that person who might just be one and done and never want to fight again. For Cage Titans, we're making memories and we're helping these people achieve dreams, whether it's one fight and never again, 59-year-old John Payne. Like it doesn't like your goal could be the UFC and you're the next best thing, but you're no more important to me or Cage Titans than the guy who's making his amateur debut. We're going to give them equal social media. We're going to give them equal, handshakes at the fights and all that stuff. Yeah. For us, those type of moments are what I live for. And we're helping these guys achieve their dreams, the step in the cage.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
Thanks.
Cage Titans 60, Saturday night. Plymouth Memorial Hall. This is going to be awesome. Now, I know you're Mr. Switzerland, so I don't know if I can even ask these, but we'll see. What do you think is the sleeper fight on this card that people should really be paying attention to?
Oh, man, you're right. Like, I'm just going to say every fight. There's 14 matchups.
You're the worst.
I know. I am the worst. It is so funny because when we do our Table Titans every Monday, I always ask those same questions because I push it on them. I'm like, hey, what are you looking forward to? I would just say there's just so many great cards. Like you don't know, like that guy, like let's just say Travis Soulard, he's making his amateur debut. No one knows a thing about this guy.
Yep.
He's making his debut. But on Monday morning, we might be all talking about this guy. And that's what makes these fight cards. But we also will be talking about the Ozzie Martin versus Brody McDougal title fight. We'll be talking about the Jay Perrin return against Lionel Young and the Don Shanis return. And Gilbride's back and Marty Navis is back. And there's just so many things to get excited about. Like Montrell James, who's taking on Marty Navis, flying in. He's actually flying in as we speak. I got to pick him up at the airport in 3 hours. He's been training his ass off, and he's like, I've been watching Cage Titans for so many years. I've been dying to get on a card. You never got back to me. Now's my chance. I'm putting on a show.
I love it.
So there's just so many opportunities. Robert Wustig, he's been fighting since 2008, and he just picked up at Combat FC his first ever win on American soil, and he's super stoked and like riding that high. And he's taking on Don Shanis, who's returning from the UFC, wants to pick up some wins to get back to the UFC. And Wustig's like, I'm here to take that hype. Like,
I love it.
There's just so
I live for that. Well,
hold on, I got a special guest here. I'm gonna ask him. I got Big Mikey De Silva sitting next to me.
Oh man! Don't let that mug on screen. Don't let it on
screen. So now the mug. This is crazy.
Tell her what fight you're looking forward to most.
Oh man, that main event is gonna be absolutely bananas. That's gonna be crazy. And
as long as you are front row by me, it's gonna be a good night, and we'll watch it together.
Break your heart.
You're not gonna be there?
No, I'm not gonna be there. Unfortunately, I might drop by. I don't know. Listen, it's my girlfriend's.
He goes, I might drop by. Get out of here with that.
30th birthday. I can't miss this. It's something huge.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'll take that. That's a good man right there.
We're doing some big things. You know what I mean?
Okay,
I wish I could talk about here, but I can't. So
get over there.
Right.
Let me look at my ugly ass over here.
All right. Well, we'll do some shots next time then. That's fine. That's fine.
I gotta respect that. His girlfriend. It's her 30th.
That's a big one. That's cool. I dig that. All right. Cool.
I will say she's a trooper though, because she told me, she's like, listen, to all the men out there, they'll respect this. I feel like he was getting put in a trap. She was like, listen, you can go. Like, it's my birthday, but go. And I'm like, Mikey, I think that's a trap. I'm like,
it's a trap. She's waiting to see what you do. I don't know. But that's awesome. But I think one thing is for sure, Mike. I think, anybody that knows you or knows Cage Titans will automatically say you're super passionate about your brand, you're passionate about the fighters, and I think that's why people really flock to Cage Titans. So I'm super pumped to be a part of it myself, and I think this Saturday is going to be super fun. Before I let you go, let's wrap up with some fan questions. We got plenty of those. What
are you looking forward to the most? Woo!
Okay. Oh, okay. I don't have to be Switzerland. That's fine. Yeah. Let me look up this card real quick because there were a couple. I'm honestly looking forward to the McDougal fight. I think that's going to be a really fun fight. I don't want to mess up the other one's name here. Ozzy Martin. Yeah. I actually got a chance to speak with McDougal, and I was very impressed just by how he carries himself. Very well spoken. And I've seen him fight before. I loved how him and Ozzy both have similar knockouts. They seem to have similar styles. That's going to be super fun. But when it comes to the pros, I mean, really excited to see Jay Perrin put it on the line again with Lionel Young. Lionel Young's a dog. And Jay Perrin just has a really good fight IQ. My favorite fight on this. I think the sleeper fight, we're going to go with the sleeper fight, is going to be Pat Gilbride and Keelan Fantroy.
I put that in that right before the main event and co-main event.
Yeah, that's going to be the sleeper fight where it's like we all know that Pat is good, but I think he's going to be his best that night. And I think
so. On that note, I made me think: how do you not love the fact that Greg Jones, at 50 years old, is making his professional debut after going 2-0. And dude, not only that, he's making his debut against a fellow 46-year-old man in Dan Bartolini, who's making his professional debut at that age. Like, for all us older guys that are sitting in the crowd, this is going to kick you in the ass and say it's never too late in life to get up and get out there and do whatever you want and put your mind to it. You can achieve it.
I love that shit. I absolutely eat it up. And I know the fans do too. And it's like, they're not slouches. Like, these guys are like going to go in there and they're going to be ready. So I think you're starting off the card with that, right?
That's the main card.
Love that. That's going to get people so amped. That's going to be so fun.
And people don't know Bartolini because he hasn't been around in the game for like 5 years, but he was an original Jorge Rivera Athletics guys. He was training with Richie Santiago, who's gone on to the Contender Series, a commentator for us. Chris Motino's #1 training partner back when Jorge had the gym. Like Ramo Cottarelli. Like, though he has not been competing for 5, 6, 7 years, like, this kid was in the gym with some legends, of this local area. So he's got something for it too. So I think that's just going to be a fun one. But yeah, let's go to the fan questions.
I love it. Yeah, let's go. There's plenty. Mikey, I'm going to skip over yours. He said, "What is it?" I'm kidding. He said, "What is it like having Mikey, or having me rather, as an employee?"
I will tell you this: me and Big Mike, he's amazing. What makes it really cool about it, not just because he's sitting next to me. This guy was a kid in the crowd who was just a fan of, a high school friend of Joe Giannetti, who just came to support him. And then he's just become such an integral part of Cage Titans. I remember back when he first started coming, then he was only there for the Giannetti cards. Then he was just coming as a fan every time, buying front row tickets. Then he started showing up at 8 a.m. when we were setting the cage. And then I'm like, "Hey, dude, like, what are you doing here?" He's like, "I know you guys set the cage. I figured I'd help out." And I'm like, "All right, well, let me give you some tickets. Let me give you this." He's like, "I already bought my tickets." I'm like, "So you're going to be here for 5 hours setting the cage and then you still bought your tickets?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I got support." He's always been that type of guy. We just actually got the cage re-fenced. He just helped me unload the cage, get the fence panels from Quincy back down to Plymouth. This kid's a trooper. He's just been such a great person to be around. A great human being. So, love having him.
This might be hard. What is your favorite fight of the year so far?
Ooh, man, I got to pull a Switzerland card. But
come on.
All right, fine. I mean, how do you talk? Like, I will say the ending of Cage Titans 58, the March doubleheader.
Yes.
Peter Barrett and and Mo Kanani
Mo, yep.
go out and put on like a fight of the ever for Cage Titans, and it was just like, hold my bag, and here comes Party and Doomer, and they're like, anything you can do, I can do better, and they come out and did complete banger. And the sad part about that card is we actually lost our main event at weigh-ins, so like we were kind of like, oh man, Giannetti versus Vendramini's not happening,
right?
And then we weren't even talking about that afterwards. Those fights were 2 bangers. Certified bangers. Yeah. Speaking
of the Party, he chimed in. He said, ask him when the Party will be arriving to Plymouth again.
Ooh. The Party and I have a great relationship. Him and I have been talking. It looks like September. I don't want to spoil the Party and talk too soon.
All right.
But I will say this. I know Lionel and Jay Perrin, obviously, back and forth. They've been talking about fighting for a long time. I know Lionel's asked for a rematch with the Party. I know Party's asked for Mitch Raposo, and Mitch Raposo has asked about the Party. There's a couple things that we could be working on.
Cool.
So the Party will return soon. And you know, it's always a party when the party's there.
It's always craziness, that's for sure. We'll end on a high note. Will there be a t-shirt toss this show? Or you can't even call it a toss. Will there the t-shirt cannon? Will that be here?
Oh, so that's a great question. When I get off with you, I'm gonna have to follow up. So that was actually, I think I told the story to you, maybe I haven't, but I was out at Main Street Sports in Plymouth one night, like after the show, like 2 shows ago. And Joe Poirier is there with his big super fan, his version of Mikey Da Silva. And they're chatting me up and they're just having a good time having drinks. I'm having a couple of drinks. And his friend says to me, he's like, hey, I want to buy a t-shirt cannon. Will you let me shoot t-shirts into the crowd for Joe Poirier's next fight? And I was like, of course, we're all feeling good. We're buying each other.
Right.
So I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. I'm sorry. I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. Go ahead, buy it. It's an afterthought. It's a late Saturday night at 1 a.m. This conversation happened. First thing the next morning, I wake up to screenshot. It's an $800 cannon. If I buy this, were you serious last night? Now I'm replaying in my head. I'm like, what did I say?
Right. Like, wait, what did we talk about?
Yeah. So the reason why so then we pulled it off last show and everybody loved it. The reason I'll say a question mark is because he's a super fan of Joe Poirier. Joe Poirier is not on this card because he's actually in a wedding. So if I don't mean it, I don't know if both of them are in the wedding.
Gotcha.
Or what's the deal? But maybe we can get the cannon on loaner.
Yeah, maybe he can like give it to us. But what I will say is the beer chug will be happening again. I can guarantee that will happen again. That was so much fun. I was like, I can't believe he's letting me do this right now. Hey, if anybody is gonna be in the crowd Saturday night and you see me and you're like, Maddie, I want to be in that beer chug, just let me know.
Well, I actually have somebody lined up for September.
Okay.
Already. So this has been a big hit. And it makes sense. Look at all the beer cans behind me. We teamed up with Second Wind Brewery for Cage Titans 50 2 years ago. And they created their first Cage Titans beer, top shelf one. And then they've been doing it for that long. They do the pregame party. And, beers and fights just go hand in hand. And the beer chug is just right on point. And I think that's also what makes Cage Titans fun. Like the secret formula, like we're not afraid to do anything. Give anything a try. Like
totally.
We're not too stuffy. And then the other thing is that we're not too stuffy where we'll try something that may or may not work and we'll stumble a little bit and people will see us stumble a little bit on things. But I feel like they're seeing us grow while they're watching, which also makes them feel the connection that they have. Beer chug. Hit up Maddie. Beer waterfall. I want to see a beer waterfall.
Oh God. Well, one thing at a time, please. You're gonna stress me out here, but I'm excited. Saturday night, Cage Titan 60 going down in Plymouth. Are there tickets left? I don't know.
There are some tickets left. It is summer. Damn, Luke Combs had to schedule a concert, I guess, at Gillette. So I've had a couple people like, oh man, a bunch of my people that normally come are going to Luke Combs. So there are tickets available. Typically, they're not on the week of the fight.
Okay.
But there are some tickets available. Hit up your favorite fighter. I say this every time. That's how a lot of these fighters get paid. And it's not because I'm a cheap bastard. These fighters get paid a ticket commission off what they sell, and that's how they make money for their medicals and fight expenses. So if you can, do us all a favor. Hit up your favorite fighter and get those tickets from them. But, of course, if you can't, you can always go to CageTitansFC.com. to get your tickets. And
yes, shout out to Spectation Sports. Hell yeah.
I was going to say, and if you can't make it in person and you can only watch from home with a few friends or whatever, Spectation Sports got you covered. Spectation Sports will be live streaming the entire event. And again, we're all about helping the fighters out at Cage Titans. If you use your favorite fighter's last name as your promo code, they get a percentage of that sale back to them. And then you, as the user, will receive 20% off your first order of the fight. So spectationsports.com, use your favorite fighter's last name. So if you can't come to the fight and buy tickets from them, they can get the stream and they can still benefit and make some money.
I love it. Mike Polvere, Cage Titans president and the man behind the brand. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you Saturday. Happy Fight Week.
Happy Fight Week. Thank you so much.